All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our October second Wednesday session. With October being National Women's Small Business Month, we wanted to have two very special guests here today. Both Lindsey and Amanda are attorneys in our business and corporate group, and they're here to share some practical guidance to help women entrepreneurs kind of take advantage of some resources and support and other tools to help accelerate that business growth. So, Lindsey and Amanda, I'm really glad to have you here today. Thank you for taking time out of your day to chat with us today.
Happy to be here, Rob. Thanks for having us.
Thanks. Now, my understanding is that in addition to today's session, you also have a separate podcast, right? Businesswomen Talking. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, we
Okay.
are on our 10th or 11th episode, so we're almost finished out for the year, but getting ready to record for next year with some new
Okay.
guests as well.
Awesome. And of course that doesn't compete with our Wednesday session, right? You're
No.
not trying to take the spotlight off of us here, but I do want to point out that resource. Where is that available if people wanted to start listening in on that?
We have a landing page through our firm's website. So if you went into Foster Swift, searched Businesswomen Talking, or vice versa, even typed that into Google, it lands to resources that Amanda and I have previously drafted. So additional like women-owned business certification pamphlets and
Yeah.
as well as like a link to all of our YouTube episodes. So accessible
Okay.
through YouTube solely as well.
Very
Yep. And
cool.
then we also are publishing on Spotify too. So if somebody uses Spotify for their podcast, that you can see some of our episodes there as well.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure to link that in the chat for anyone that wants to, start following those podcasts. And you actually kind of segue right into what some of the things that we want to talk about, which is an article that you guys recently wrote, top five legal considerations for women entrepreneurs, a practical guide. I think that that's a great place for us to start today's conversation. If you can tell us a little bit more about what these considerations are and where women-owned businesses can gain some resources using them.
Yeah, I believe Jake, who is from our marketing team and has helped us really get this podcast off the ground, as well as the rest of our marketing team, is going to publish the article that Amanda and I wrote. But we're going to summarize essentially in this webinar the five considerations that we highlighted. So I'll let Amanda kick it off with the women-owned business certifications, which we kind of touched on.
Yeah, perfect. So Lindsay and I have done quite a bit of work in this area, and women-owned business certification is a really neat tool for businesses. Certifying your business can be a strategic decision that can position your company for long-term success. And certifications are available at local, state, or federal levels. There's a lot of opportunities out there, and they can, having those certifications may allow a business to have access to government contracts, private sector supplier diversity programs, specific grants that are for women-owned businesses or minority-owned businesses. So depending on what industry that you're in, different certifications can give you a competitive edge. And so Lindsay and I have looked at a number of different certifications that are out there, and we've assisted clients with determining which certifications would be best for them, based on their goals and where what they qualify for and where they want to go. Some of the certifications, though, that we've specifically looked at are the Women's Business Enterprise National Council certification, and also the Small Business Administration's Women-Owned Small Business certification. Those are both like at the national level, but there are some state and local ones that are in Michigan that we've had experience with as well. The Great Lakes Women Business Council has a certification program. There's a great one out of Detroit and another one in Grand Rapids, and they're not solely limited to women-owned business certifications. Sometimes you can gain certification based on a minority status or something similar to that. So
Yeah.
certifications in our practical guidance document, certifications are one way that a minority or woman-owned business can get an edge on another business. And so whether you're starting your business or you're looking to grow, having some of those credentials can be a check mark in your box that makes you look better and makes you stand out from other businesses.
Oh, absolutely. And so we have some experience on the minority owned. We represent, several minority owned and minority certified business in the automotive industry and the defense industry and things like that.
Yep.
And I'll tell you the number of doors that are potentially opened, just enormous, right? But navigating the certification process is not always easy, nor is knowing, kind of how to certify or where to go to certify or what to do after you're certified, right?
Mhm.
So, all those things are good resources to explore, and as you say, is going to give that that edge over non-certified businesses that are out there.
Mhm.
So when we talk about certification, we've talked about minority-owned certification, we talked about women-owned certification. Are there any other certifications that may be out there that people should kind of have their eyes on, or any other benefits that we want to talk about before we transition kind of into our next topic?
Yeah, some others I can think of that Amanda and I have kind of come across just by researching the women business enterprise certifications and minority owned businesses is LGBTQIA plus certifications are available, same thing, local, state, federal level, and veteran owned businesses are
Mhm.
increasingly starting to certify. So essentially, if you fit into any category or box or feel like it's something that your customers may want to individually support women, veterans,
Mhm.
LGBTQ businesses. All of these places kind of mark a safe space for customers that share those values or identities.
Yeah.
And I think, like you and Amanda have talked about, really opens doors
Mhm.
Yeah.
to those
And
businesses.
and we see it, really in two tranches, right? You have not only the benefit of getting the contracts and access to some of these resources, but we always see ancillary documents, right? Almost any company is having, some sort of push towards, these social responsibility standards, right? And having some of these certifications can really help check the box and make sure that you're complying with the provision that no one actually reads, because I think it's not going to be enforced. But unfortunately, it is something that can come back around if you're not complying with. So I think that those certifications are fantastic.
Mhm.
Now, what about things like funding sources, right? Are there, and look, being a business and finance attorney, right? We deal with, the funding sources all the time, right? And I know, I think I know the answer to this one, but you two are the experts on these. So what kind of funding sources are available? Why is it important for women-owned entrepreneurs to be proactive in looking at these sorts of capital opportunities, and how the access to these opportunities may impact their respective business or opportunities, contracts moving forward?
Yeah, I'll let Amanda add to this if she sees, any other things that I'm missing here. But I think it's no surprise when we're helping small businesses really start up that money is the greatest challenge. I mean,
Right.
it's no small feat to reach out to investors. You run into security laws, compliance
Mhm.
concerns, or even figuring out if you're going to partner with someone that's offering funding. Are our goals aligned? Are, what is the criteria going to be to keep that funding? etc. It's like a scholarship in college that some of these funding resources are asking of small businesses. But I think many women entrepreneurs may not realize that there are organizations and funding sources available that are specifically seeking to support minority owned and women owned companies. So finding and applying for capital support that is really targeted to those spaces can be a game changer, especially
Mhm.
for women who may feel like they are unsure about where they're going with funding sources or feel like this male-owned business that has seemed to, leaps and bounds ahead of them, would not be able to have access to this capital resource. So it can be a niche benefit available only to women-owned businesses. So sometimes taking the time to find those and doing the diligence into the application process is obviously crucial, but a legal team, Amanda or I, can help really source out what that criteria is, and it can really make all the difference to help you
Mhm.
start up this well-organized business enterprise.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
just oh,
go
sorry,
ahead.
Rob.
No, please go ahead.
Just to piggyback on that too, we did put together a handout for our most recent. We do like a quarterly coffee chat with women business owners, just get together, talk about the struggles, successes, and whatever's going on. It's a really casual networking event, but what Lindsey and I do for each of those is put together some sort of informational something to give. So recently we did put together a document that had some funding opportunities, and I think that it is linked on the Foster Swift website. So if somebody is interested in maybe exploring some of the opportunities that we've already identified, you can find it on the Foster Swift website or reach out to Lindsey and I, and we'd be more than happy to share that with anybody.
Perfect.
Mhm.
So, in when I see these opportunities, right? I again, to use the phrase that I was using before, I kind of see them in two different tranches, right? You have access to funding sources, but there's also opportunities out there, I imagine, to assist with, the paperwork and the compliance, right? How to evaluate quality of earnings, or how to get your SIM or your confidential information memorandum, or those sorts of ancillary documents that are out there. And I think that there's some resources, again, not just to provide cash, right, but also to help with the paperwork to get that cash and understand where that cash is going and evolve to the next level. Do you see that those resources are out there as well to, again, help with the vision, the goals, and then the paperwork and all those sorts of things?
Yeah, I think that there are those opportunities. One that's coming to mind is that I believe that Lansing Economic Area Partnership, they often work with small businesses and they do exactly what you're talking about, Rob. They will come in and they'll support you with some of the foundational things that businesses need to have in place. And they'll walk a business owner through strategic planning, how to go about that. When do you need to get an attorney involved? How do you find an attorney? What they might link you to other opportunities that can help jumpstart your business. So I think Leap stands out as an organization in Lansing that does that, but I know there are a number of economic,
Mhm.
you know, groups throughout the state of Michigan that also assist with those types of things. And I think that kind of leads into something else that is part of our practical guidance is finding a I guess building an intentional network of people around you that is
Mhm.
going to help you to like level up is really what we see as being the most successful approach for a lot of our clients. And that means finding people who have different skill sets than you, right? Like I'm an attorney, I'm not a CPA, but to be successful, if I was a business owner, I need a great CPA that I can rely on. I need financial advisors, consultants, maybe mentors. And sometimes in mine and Lindsay's experience, sometimes those people are women, but they're often a mix of men and women. So
Mhm.
even though, our article is about practical advice for women, I think it applies across the board. All business owners really need to be intentional about their network building, find the people that have the skill sets that they don't have, and really find those trusted advisors to help them along the way. And we found that to be it's practical guidance. You got to find those people, invest in those people. They will invest in you, and then we're all empowered together to move forward and do better.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know from experience, this is a second career for me. I was in real estate and finance before I became an attorney. Um, Sometimes it's hard, handing that off and bringing in those
Yep.
trusted advisors, right?
Yeah.
Admitting that, hey, there's an area that I don't know as well as someone else, and maybe I should listen to them, right? It's definitely a difficult decision, no matter what your gender is. So.
Hmm.
What or are they? I guess I shouldn't assume, one way or the other, but what are the unique challenges or considerations that you regularly encounter with your clients that we may be able to discuss here, obviously without giving names or details. But what are we seeing as kind of a reoccurring issue or something that people may want to, kind of be on the lookout for?
Hmm. The first thing that jumps to mind for me is succession planning.
Yeah.
This is a big area. A lot of conversations are being had with, attorneys in our group and clients. Um, Thinking ahead, is very hard. Sometimes business owners, they're in the weeds with the day to day running their business, making sure they're filing all their tax returns, paying their employees, meeting deadlines for customers and clients, and all of that takes a lot of time. So I think that succession planning is something that often falls by the wayside, and people, it'll become a problem when it's a little bit too late, oftentimes.
Yeah.
So Last year, Foster Swift partnered with LEAP, Lansing Economic Area Partnership, and we did a series of webinars on succession planning. And the impetus for that webinar and, speaker series was related to the number of businesses in mid-Michigan that basically had no succession plan. And rather than being a business that could be sold to a third party or transition to management, the business simply went away when the original founding owner was ready to retire. And so I think that there is a big opportunity for businesses that are operating and I guess, managing members or however you're set up, maybe it's the board, maybe it's the members, are thinking about leaving. There's a huge opportunity to start thinking about succession planning early. Not doing it early enough can devalue your business. It can damage your relationships with your employees because they don't know where they're going to be in 5 or 10 years from now. But if you think a bit ahead, you can, keep those relationships in place, keep your customers happy, find somebody that can take over your business and continue the legacy that you've grown. And so I think that's a really big opportunity for people. And it's not like you have to sit down and come up with this massive plan that lays out the rest, the next 50 years of your business. But really, it's just making good business decision about who could be the next in line. Let's start thinking about our processes and putting that down in paper. Let's consider, what makes us stand out as a business and how can we make sure to train the next group of employees that are coming in and the next group of leadership. And really, that's just good business, right? You want to have all those things documented and you want to have a plan moving forward. So I guess I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but I think that succession planning is the one thing that has been talked about a lot in the last couple of years. It's going to continue to be important for people, and it's never too early to start having those conversations and thinking through some of those really critical pieces of success for long-term success of a business.
Yeah. I mean, no matter what, a business is either going to shut down or it's going to sell. That's the eventual, future of a business, right?
Right.
And setting yourself up, whether it's from the legal side, from the financial side, right? Are we pursuing profits or are we pursuing growth, right? Do we want to sell in 5 years or do we want to sell in 100 years, right? Having that aligned and cohesive strategy is something that needs to be discussed. Amanda, you actually brought up something that kind of reminded me of a project that you and I worked on together, many years ago, which was phantom stock plans for the employees, right? You encourage that relationship with the employees and giving them that particular benefit when the company is sold, right? It endears the company to the employees, and I think certainly based on the one deal that we did together on that, it had a very positive impact on the company and the ability to sell and how motivated everyone was to engage in that cohesive process and that cohesive future planning as to what we were doing. So it goes beyond just the simple, hey, who's going to inherit the stock when I pass, right? Everyone thinks succession planning is estate planning, and I absolutely disagree. It's a component of succession planning, but it's so much further beyond that. So, Lindsey, what sorts of recurring issues do you see? We talked about succession planning. I'm going to have a couple of questions here in a second about intellectual property, because I think that's something that we definitely want to talk about on this call. But what sorts of things do you see reoccurring?
I think Amanda speaking to that network of people that you're building is so crucial, and it really does tie in to the succession planning and estate planning and protecting your assets in that space, not so much the intellectual property space, is a crucial piece of that. And we've got great folks here that have done a lot of helpful work, both us on the business side with stock ownership plans, with giving some equity to your employees, but also in family. If this is a family business, if you want to transition this to a particular person or friend into the hands of somebody who shares that vision, I tend to find that a lot of our women-owned business and women entrepreneurs are really focused on keeping the visions and values that they built their business on continuing. And it's not just, I think succession plan kind of is making us think, when you die, where do my assets go? But it's also like when you retire, if this is a hit, if you want to pass this off to your child while you're 50, there's opportunity there to start that process early. And the earlier you begin, the quicker and smoother that transition can be to keep the reputation and everlasting brand of your business ongoing.
Yeah. And I have a client case on point on this issue. The owner passed away, wife took the stock through the estate plan, daughter is running it. And not only are you dealing with the transition issues, but because they didn't really have a cohesive plan,
Yeah.
daughter had to do a lot of catch up just to understand where they're at because she was working on other areas of the business, right? And it was an unfortunate scenario, but it is what it is. So, yeah, that succession planning is something that people just overlook because you spend so much time working in your business, you're not working on it. So, to use the phrase. So, what about things like intellectual property, right? I know that Lindsey, you have particular experience in this area. And intellectual property, at least in my experience, tends to be one of the less thought about areas of law until something major happens,
Yeah.
right? You're worried about your leases, you're worried about your contracts, right? You're not necessarily worried about things like trademarks and maybe if you're designing stuff, how to deal with patents. But
Yeah.
what sorts of things have you emphasized in your article with respect to safeguarding those assets and those intellectual properties that we can discuss?
Yeah, I echo what you say. I think it kind of is a last bullet point item that people are not necessarily thinking about the brand of their business because it's this more overarching, almost feels conceptual and not very tangible in terms of something to protect. But it really is an asset. It's not just about the leased space or the equipment you're purchasing for your business. It's also everything that would tie in more so to the essence of your business, the brand, the type of services you're providing, the unique logo, slogan, whatever it might be. People are not forward to protecting that and don't realize that someone else can steal that brand, that concept, that idea if it's not protected much more easily. And hence how we come in at the last effort when someone gets that scary letter from someone else that says, hey, you're using my business name.
Yeah.
And I think this is so relevant despite if you're developing innovative technology and you're talking about patenting something, but it's even the logo at the storefront of your business. It's even the website domain. It's these little items, whether you want to copyright protect it or protect it with a trademark, that get overlooked. And so taking that extra step before you get the scary letter to safeguard your intellectual property is really crucial. And at least in my experience, something we offer to do is, as best to our ability, this search both of the internet as much as we possibly can and other marks already registered with the USPTO to tell you, hey, there's already somebody registered with a really similar name. And that way, if we do this at the beginning of the business, you're not trying to start your business when a bigger pre-existing company already exists with the same name. You're able to develop a brand new brand identity in that particular goods or services space that is unique to you and set you apart from everyone else if you're not sounding so eerily similar to someone else. So I think that's an asset that people aren't thinking about protecting to the degree we're talking about equipment, even shares in the company, ownership, and those types of concerns. Intellectual property, it can be really crucial and help you in the long term to add value to your business.
Yeah. So I have three comments about what you said. One of them is just referencing a video that I've seen on social media at some point in time, and it's an entrepreneur that's pitching at like Shark Tank or something. I think it was in England or something like that. And he or she was talking about the website domain that they wanted to get and all this stuff and pitching it. We got this great brand, we got this great thing. Hey, have you actually registered the domain name? No, we haven't. And literally the person registered and sniped it out while they were sitting there and said, this is a lesson you need to learn, right? You need to change now your entire brand or you're going to pay me, X number of dollars, right? So, it's a practical thing. It happens, right? And that transitions to the second item that I want to talk about, which is, look, you have to deal with, IP trolls, right? IP, bad actors that if you haven't taken those steps, which I'd like to discuss here in a moment, may take them for you. And now you're potentially in a worse position because you don't have the presumptions that come with some of the formal registration. So when we're talking about IP protection here and we're drilling down a little bit, what are the formal protections that you can get, like the trademark, the patent, right? What's in the 4 or 5 minutes we have left here, can you shed a little bit light on those sorts of issues and when people should be looking at any particular form of exercising their right or registering or protection?
Sure. Yeah. And copyright trolls and trademark trolls, huge with the rise of AI. Like it's not even a person searching for your logo or video, audio clip, whatever it might be. It's a automated bot that's searching for particular keywords and it's finding it much quicker than any person was previously able to do. And so we're seeing increasingly that coming to our desks. But in terms of what the protection on the front end, before you get scary copyright troll letter would look like, is registering with either the Copyright Office or the United States Patent and Trademark Office, depending on the type of IP we're talking about. Once you register, assuming you proceed to registration, you have the right to use whether it's a Circle C, a Circle TM, a Circle R, depending on where you are in the trademark registration process or copyright registration process, to put people on notice essentially that you own this mark and it belongs to you or your company. And that's accessible on both of those, the US Copyright Offices and the USPTO's databases. So there's this notice component that it allows other people to know that they cannot then go and try and register something confusingly similar to yours. But it also entitles you to statutory protections and fees if an issue arises and you're alleging someone infringes on your rights. You now, because you've registered your IP, have the right to bring additional statutory damages in your claim, as well as recover attorney's fees, which can be major. Like litigation is extremely costly. And I think people do not realize we're talking upwards of 5 figures, if not 6, sometimes to fight these cases.
Fraction to just do it right in the first place.
100%. And to have that already registered, it's a simple demand letter that says, I've owned this IP for X amount of years. You're infringing. Here's what I'm technically entitled to if you do not stop. And it really provides that basis and platform to feel confident in your allegation that someone is infringing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, and we only have just a couple minutes left here, so I kind of want to fill the end of the discussion with this. And I'm going to put you both on the spot here, so I apologize for that. But if each of you could take 1 minute and just say, if you wanted to impart one cautionary, sentence or one cautionary issue for women-owned businesses. We've talked about a lot of different things here, right? What would you say your priority and your next step is if you wanted to, run a successful business and you may not have done some of these things, right? Do you prioritize the succession planning? Do you prioritize the funding? Do you prioritize the relationships? What do each of you think?
So I think that's a good question. When we put the article together, we had 5 because we felt like they're all super important.
Yeah.
I think my gut feeling though is build your network, and also let's go back to the basics. If you're in business, we should be checking on our documentation about the business and making sure we have everything in order, because there's so many business owners that have an LLC and they have partners, but they don't have an operating agreement, for example. So like if I was going to tell a business owner, let's evaluate something right away, let's just go back to the basics and make sure that you have the proper structure in place with the proper documentation that's going to allow you to proceed forward, knowing what your rights and obligations are with your other partners. And alongside that, let's build up our network of professionals and service providers that can help you to be the most successful that you can be.
Perfect. Lindsey, what are your thoughts?
I think something we didn't touch on in the article or today's webinar, and it's kind of a brief note at the end of our article, is something that I think both Amanda and I face with with our own careers is this like work-life balance pressure that I think is really particular for women entrepreneurs and women business owners, as well as any woman in a corporate space. Like I said, Amanda and I have experienced this too. And, I don't have legal words of wisdom to bestow here, but I think that boundary, finding the mentors, like Amanda said, finding a support network of people. Amanda's one for me, in my own firm, and being able to share the different types of barriers you feel you may be facing because of your position in a company or your position in leadership, I think really makes a difference. And though that does tie into like our networking and support space in the article, I think work-life balance is something that women entrepreneurs face in a really unique way, and can't stress enough the importance of finding people that care and relate.
Perfect. So Lindsey, Amanda, thank you for taking the time. When we talk about work-life balance, I know that, this is time out of your already busy days, but we really appreciate you coming on to today's session, sharing your thoughts. For everyone, we did post in the chat a link to not only the top 5 legal considerations, but also the Businesswomen Talking podcast as well. So if you're interested in those resources, we do have them linked in the chat, and they're always available on the Foster Swift website. And again, I'd like to remind everyone that our next session is on November 12th, 2025, same time at noon, and some more information on the topic will be forthcoming. So again, Lindsey and Amanda, thank you so much for taking time out of the day to speak with us here. If anyone has any questions, you can always reach out to Lindsey and Amanda, whose information is available on the website, and I believe is also linked on the invitation as well. So you shouldn't have any difficulty tracking either you two down.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. We'd love to speak with anybody on this. So please don't hesitate to email or call either Lindsey or I.
Perfect. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and have a fantastic rest of your week. Take care.